you, I mean, in this environment?
So in fact, Mubina, we've had a very mixed reaction. And the good part is I don't have any investor who's kind of worried. We don't have anybody who's called up to say that, markets have crashed about a 20-30% now. What do we do? Our values have gone down. So I don't have anybody, fortunately, calling up showing concerns with regards to the correction in the market. Well, I have people who've called up and, who've expressed that, their difficulties with regards to receiving notices from their companies to say that they're looking at a 30% pay cut. They're looking at, deferment of the salaries coming. So, some of them may not get their salary on time. They will get it, but probably with a delay of 1 or 2 months. So these are the kind of concerns that people have. And on the other hand, I have one set of investors who are very excited about this correction and they're looking at it as an opportunity. So there's a lot of mixed reactions, I would say. The good part is the investors right now are much better in terms of handling this correction vis-a-vis what they were in say about 2008. The correction in 2008, they were scared. So there was a lot of panic, which I don't think is the case right now.
Okay. Kalpesh, what about you? I mean, are your clients as well braving it up well, showing you, a brave face?
The situation everywhere, fortunately, has turned out to be where everyone is holding each other's hand and telling we are not in it alone.
Yeah.
I think that is the most important part. And all of us, like today, if I'm the advisor and I have an investor, tomorrow I might be a client to somebody and I might be worried about something. There is always everyone who's holding each other's hand, and that's a great solace. Because I think by now it's sunk in everybody's psyche and everybody's mind that this is not a crisis which is normal. And least of all, I would call it a financial crisis, because it's much, much above that. It is a humanitarian crisis. It's a crisis of survival and a very, a broad-based type of a thing, which is affecting everyone. So all of us know, all the investors know, and fortunately for, our investors, where we are into hardcore financial planning, where people's, money is all tagged towards their goals. They know that not theirs, but every, I think, portfolio of every investor globally who's into equities has been in the red. So they have faced it up, chin up, and they know that this is not the time to panic and give sleepless nights to themselves or to the advisors. And that is pretty evident thus far. Now, we all hope, we all pray, we all are fighting against the pandemic that we get out of it as early as possible. But we do not know how deep the tunnel is. So that is where the role of us as financial advisors would stand out really, really more pronounced. Like what Harsh rightly said, that thus far everyone is really not worried about their equity portfolios. But the people who have already had their planning, in fact, in place earlier, they've had their contingency fund, they have got some money, the liquidity tunnel, they've got the money kept aside for these rainy days, and these are not rainy days, these are in fact thunderstorms. So they have kept this money aside for those type of things, and they are facing it out bravely and keeping calm. That is the most important thing. So that is one aspect of it. And like you rightly introduced in the beginning of the program, that all of us, so we might be professionals, there might be salaried people, there might be business people who are going to take a reduction in their income levels. So we are ready for it. So there's no two ways about it. You can't have that same type of, what we had earlier going forward, at least for the next 6 months to 12 months going forward out here. The second part which Harsh addressed is the excitement amongst equity investors. So that is there, but in that, I think even in the advising fraternity or in the financial investments fraternity, there are two camps. The one type of people are saying that these are very, attractive levels and lip smacking levels and people should get investing. And the other ones who are saying that this is not the right time to do it. Probably I'm in the latter part of it and not getting too overtly excited about getting your investments in equity, especially going full bloom about it, because first is survival, and I like to say in Hindi is jaan hai to jahan hai, and keeping everything, secure first, and then slowly but surely getting into the valuations part and looking at investments.
Okay, a fair point. And yeah, I mean, that one thing that's really encouraging, I suppose, in this is solidarity. We are not alone in this, right? I mean, if my neighbor is going to get a pay cut, so am I. And I think that is something, I suppose, that may be giving us some strength to carry on. But, for all those who still feel that, the future is extremely uncertain, they're extremely worried, I think that's the purpose as well of this webinar, right? To help you manage your money more effectively so that you can brave any sort of, financial misfortune that may hit you, whether it's in the form of a pay cut, whether it's in the form of, a job loss as well, which could be very severe. So, before I get to questions and queries, by the way, we've already got a couple of questions lined up before us. So let me just request all our viewers as well and all our participants that, put in your questions here with respect to maybe a loan that you have, with respect to how to manage your money, etc. You can put in your questions and, we'll get them answered. But for now, let me just take some of the very basic steps of what should one do when they, if in case they feel that, maybe my income will be hit, maybe my business may be slow, maybe I may lose my job, etc. So what should be the steps one should follow, if they do feel that? So, Harsh, I think I'll start off with you first. And this is something with respect to the most basic thing that you must do, and that's listing down your expenses, your monthly expenses. So Harsh, would you say that that's step one that you must do?
Well, Mubina, one thing I guess everybody will have to accept is that there's going to be a reduction in income. Now, if you're a business person, you are a salaried, you're a professional, in any field, there is going to be some kind of loss of income that you're going to have. Now, it could be 20%, it could be 30%, in some cases even 50%, and you will still have to manage your expenses. So, rightly, one is that you will have to. This is a good time. So we're all in quarantine kind of situation. We are all in at home. Why don't we just sit down and actually list down our monthly expenses? You will be surprised to know that so many households don't even know where their money gets spent. And this is something very basic. Trust me, it's not difficult to do. It's just that we've been in inertia. We've never taken that initiative. I would say this. I have done this myself now in this month. So earlier I used to entrust this job onto my other family members. But during this month, I mean, because we had nothing better to do even otherwise, I mean, we were sitting and trying to, I put down all the expenses that we were incurring into a different list, into different topics. So yes, of course, to begin with, you will need to know where your money is getting spent. If you don't know where you're spending your money, how will you cut down on your expenses? So yes, list down your monthly expenses, and this is a wonderful time to do this. I mean, everybody who's sitting at home right now, and you're spending very limited amount right now. If you ask me, the money is being spent only on essentials, your utility bills, etc. It's very simple. Put it down on an Excel sheet. So just and categorize them into two or three categories. So one, you say that these are essential expenses, I cannot do anything about it. So these are your electricity charges, your telephone, some expenses like your rent, maybe all those expenses that you cannot do anything about. Yeah. So those comes under the essentials category. Like these are the expenses that I have to spend, and I have to spend it every month. Then there would be some non-essential. So as of today, if you ask me, in the last 1 month, not many people would have had their expenses on the non-essential items because they're not allowed to go out. There are no movie outings, there are no dinners and the lunches. So yes, of course, at least put the heads down and leave the amount column blank. Put it up later on as in when you start spending. So this will be your first step, and you will be really surprised. Trust me, it's a very simple exercise, but it will really, give you a clear picture as to where your money is being spent. And if later on in life, in case you wish to curtail certain expenses, this will become that parameter, and this will become that kind of a sheet that it's a ready reference to straight away go and refer to.
Harsh, you said that the things that you are utilizing right now would automatically come under essentials. But you know what? A lot of people are cleaning our homes as well ourselves. So do you think house help is at this point of time as well a non-essential?
So apparently the situation is that we are still going to be paying our house help. So the cost is still being incurred, or services are not being taken. So there's somebody else taking the money out of, and the work is being done by us. But it is an essential item in your expense list, and it has to be listed down. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure when it comes down to doing your house help, you realize how essential it is, right? Okay, Kalpesh, let me now go across to you. You know, a lot of us, touch wood, we do have certain amounts lying in our savings account, you know, maybe here and there lying in fixed deposits. So I want to come to that aspect now. Firstly, savings accounts. You know, on the money show as well, Kalpesh, when Harsh as well have come on the show, we've spoken about liquid funds. Not too complicated, quite easy as well. So do you think it's advisable, you know, to park saving account money into liquid funds? Because firstly, they do have a better interest, you know, a better rate of return. But what about the risk? I mean, is that something that you would advise at this point? And how simple is it to do? To simply just move your money lying in savings account to a liquid fund to earn better return?
So Mubina, let's talk about this aspect of contingency fund here, and take it as an entire, you know, basket. Okay. Now, when we say that our contingency fund, as a, you know, normal thumb rule, we would say is 3 to 6 months of our monthly expenses kept aside in liquid instruments. Now we should stretch the horizon a little bit more, because given the, you know, magnitude of this crisis, I would simply say that now we should have 6 months to 12 months of your you know, monthly expenses kept aside, because we do not know when this is going to end. And more importantly, we are now facing our you know, income cuts and on all the reductions which are going to come. So I would stretch that first. Now, keeping that in mind, creating a basket of actually instruments which can, you know, help you in this type of a crisis situation. Your contingency fund is your Superman, like a superhero, I would say. And that has always been told through the financial planning modules, that this contingency fund should not be looked at, which is there for generating higher returns. Should not be said that, you know, I have a contingency fund where, you know, I can easily pull out the money, so let me just play around with it and seek higher returns. The answer is a plain, strict no. Because this is that money which you would need to survive this type of a huge crisis. This has never been seen. And I would probably advise that, given the you know, intensity of this situation, it is best that we have some money even lying in our savings bank account. That is, let it earn your normal 4%, doesn't matter. Because that is the money which will give you that utmost comfort that, you know, I can tap on it anytime. I can go to the ATM and withdraw money anytime, under my nose, under my control. I don't even have to go to a mutual fund website or a, you know, platform to withdraw money from my liquid fund. The second best option is having some money in those, you know, the bank FDs which are there, which are linked, the smart FDs which are linked to your savings account. There you get that little bit of a leeway where your money is with the bank, but with higher interest, and whenever you want to break it, it immediately shifts into the savings bank account. The third aspect is coming now to the liquid funds of the mutual funds, where the money is there. And now we've seen the amount of, you know, uncertainty in the debt fund category, and liquid fund has been a part and parcel of it. So it would always be prudent to say that in debt funds also, there is an element of a risk, though minimal, but there is an element of risk. But we can always have that little bit of portion of, you know, kept aside in liquid funds, overnight funds, and ultra short duration funds. So a basket of all these, you know, instruments, savings bank account, FDs, and FDs linked to savings accounts, and your liquid funds will, I think, give you a proper contingency fund, which is 6 months to 12 months period. And as far as shifting money to liquid funds now, we've seen again in the last 1 month, one more revelation, that everything has moved online. So the physical investment aspect of mutual funds has not happened. So even now through your online platforms, if you're a direct plan investor, you do it yourself, or you can have, you know, your websites, the AMC websites help you out with that. You can easily shift your savings bank amount, some amount, to the liquid and overnight funds, where the duration is not more, anything from overnight fund as a 1 day period up to your ultra short duration, which is a 3 month holding paper. You can just look at those investments. But here the simple tip or the mantra I would say is, in deciding the amount for your contingency funds, and especially looking at debt funds or liquid funds, please do not go or run after chasing a little bit of alpha or higher returns. Please do not do that. You have to survive. You need money, then you have to, and all your essential expenses have to be met, come what may.
Okay. Okay. All right. You spoke about portfolios, you spoke about mutual funds, and I'm sure a lot of our participants, I've got many questions which are with respect to mutual funds as well. I'm going to take that in just a bit. Keep lining up your questions and queries. We're going to get those answered, but I just want to get the basics out, on how to manage your money. Harsh, let's say if somebody is short on money right now, a lot of people thankfully have started their SIPs, but let's say if somebody is, currently short of money, they need the money, to meet their urgent household expenses or whatever the case is. Firstly, would you recommend them to go and pause their SIPs or lower their SIPs, or in the entire mutual fund basket, what should they redeem first if they need the money, Harsh?
So Mubina, very clearly, it is a reality and a fact right now that people have paused their SIPs. There is no doubt on that part. So if your income is not coming in, you have EMIs to pay, which also, of course, you have some leeway, but that does not mean that you have to take it in that sense. So if you have an investment that you're doing and you surely are looking at a pay cut, you're looking at cash flow situation right now, then of course you have to stop your SIP. There is no two thoughts about it. We do say that you should invest and all those things, maintain discipline, but this is not the time to give that gyan actually. So it's very simple. I need money for my monthly expenses. My groceries are I'm buying groceries at a much higher price than what I was doing earlier. But I need them. There is no choice. There is a shortage of things which are around us, which we need for daily needs. So yes, we have to look at those situations right now. My medics are going to be there. I have medicines to buy. So if you have those to take care of course you will stop your SIP, and there's no feeling guilty about it. There will be some people who try and tell you this is you should not do that, and all those things. Markets are low. This is the time to average. So we've got some people calling me up and asking me that others are making me feel guilty about it. I say you don't need to feel guilty. You save for a rainy day, and this is a rainy day, right? So you can't be suffering today in hope of something which is going to probably happen 10, 20 years from now. So you have to look after yourself today, and that is fine. So yes, one, do not feel guilty. You don't invest with an intent to ever let that bother you. So from my message to all others who are listening, if you can continue, fine. If you cannot continue, go for a pause. That's fine. It's okay. But just make sure that when things get all right, you don't forget that you were supposed to restart it again. So we have those people who go into that mode wherein they simply forget about it. So don't do that. You come back to investing when everything comes back to normal. The part that needs to be kept in mind is that we don't know when will this get over. So even if you're estimating that I can take care of myself till the 3rd of May, for example, quite possible this will go beyond 3rd of May. So you make sure that you have enough of contingency fund. So keep that available. And anything beyond that, invest. If you don't have it, then of course you will have to stop your investment. Now your question about how do you go about if you don't have the money and you need money right now. So of course you will withdraw, out of your investments. And this is the reason you invest, right? So that you can redeem them and you can have access to them in times of need. And this is those times of need. So yes, if you have a portfolio, first of course look to redeem non-equity investments. So if you have anything and hopefully you've got a contingency fund in a liquid fund or those kinds which are not fluctuating that much, then of course you will start redeeming out of that. If you don't have those investments, so we talk about contingency fund for 6 months or 1 year, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Well, with our regular incomes, to create a corpus for 6 months of our expenses is not that easy as much as it is said. So while we may say that you have to create a 6 month contingency fund, it takes a lot of time to create it. If you're saving 10% of your income or 20% of your income, how much time is it going to take you to save that? So there is a possibility people don't have enough contingency fund as of now. No worries. You don't feel guilty about removing money out of other goals as well. So if you have saved something for your children's education, you save something for retirement, and you need money today, you will need to withdraw it. There is nothing wrong about it. Just make sure one thing, as I said, whenever things get normal, make sure you replenish that money that you've removed. So if you've done that, then go ahead and redeem first non-equity investments. So of course, debt, which is liquid, short-term funds, etc. And you can also look at fixed deposits, quite honestly. I mean, there is no harm in that. Look at those and then move to equity as a last resort. And if you have no other choice, then you'll redeem equity at these valuations as well.
Okay. I want to talk about loan now. Non-essential expenses, they can be deferred. Of course, it's not that difficult. But when it comes to servicing your EMIs, that could be, essentially a bit tricky. So, Harsh, I want to come to you first, and and then I'll talk about refinancing with Kalpesh. Harsh, firstly, would you advise the people who are currently paying their home EMIs, car EMIs, would you advise that they take the moratorium? I mean, the RBI has said that, look, what you guys, you can just sort of not pay your EMIs for 3 months. But then again, we had this FAQ from State Bank of India that said, look, the cost of taking this moratorium could be a bit higher, but it'll of course have to be paid later. So how should an individual decide whether he or she should opt for this moratorium or not, Harsh?
So essentially, my take on this entire issue of servicing loans is that if you've taken a loan, consider it as an essential payment. So how you cannot live without food, clothing, shelter? If you've taken a loan, it is a part of those essentials. So ideally, try and treat it as an essential and service it. And if it cannot at all, and you have no choice whatsoever, then of course you will have to take the moratorium option that has been given to you. Now, if it's given to you, it is given with a purpose, assuming that you cannot afford it at this point in time. Do not take it as a luxury. Why? Because the cost, as you rightly mentioned, if you are deferring your EMIs for 3 months, your tenure of the loan gets extended. So if you have a 15-year loan, now you've deferred it for 3 months, the loan becomes 15 years, 3 months the installments that you have right now, plus the interest on those 3 months delay. So it will actually go up to much more than 15 years and 3 months.
True.
The loan tenure will extend to probably 15 years for that matter. So the cost of this moratorium is actually quite high. So in keeping that context in mind, I am suggesting treat your loans as an essential item, pay it off if you can. If you cannot, then of course you prioritize. So food, clothing, shelter is going to be one, and then will be loans. But then loans are, of course, if you've taken it, you have to pay it. Treat it as essential, so that will also get you discipline, and next time you'll be very careful before taking a loan in that case as well.
Yeah, fair point. Okay. Kalpesh, now I want to come to you on the other point, refinancing your loan. What basically that means is, let's say I have a home loan right now and I'm paying maybe 10 or 11% interest rate. Last month, the RBI slashed interest rates, which technically means that even your home loan interest should be cut. But I think what a lot of people are seeing is that they are still paying the same amount of EMI. So Kalpesh, could you just talk to our viewers about, refinancing of loans?
See, basically, even if the interest rates have been cut, it's a major macro problem that, the transmission has not happened, and that has not really boiled down into the interest rates being actually the lower interest rates being passed on to the actual loan, people who've taken the loans. And that has resulted in the EMIs being absolutely where they are for many of the people which we are seeing. And that is why RBI has been so strict in telling the banks that it's high time that you pass. And now probably, I think there has been some very rapid developments where, these things have bottomed out. So it's more of a structural cyclical thing where the loans have not been, reduced for many people. And, I would suggest that, like what Harsh also rightly said, that people who are stuck in the loan route, I think they have to take it very seriously, because the implications on a compounding effect are very, very, I think, lethal for them. And the moment you stop, refinancing your loans or something, it becomes, it goes into a vicious circle type of a thing. And here, many of the loans, if you do an internal cash flow type of a projection, you might have to really dig deep into your cash flow and say, I might not want to do some expenses and even put that money into repaying my loans if I'm not able to do it in a very straightforward, forthright manner, So it takes a huge toll on an individual's cash flow in these type of circumstances. And I really pity those people, Mubina, who have been stuck in more of home loan type of projects which have just been taken. and their projects have not started. So we've got RERA fighting at one end. We've got this EMI problem. Now we've got this, the pandemic coming up, and the entire home loan issue, the real estate is just sinking into into a quicksand type of a situation. So people are seeing their EMIs going out, the cash flows getting affected, and the projects in which they've invested are nowhere to be seen. So it's a very vicious circle, and it's taking a huge toll on many of the people. So I think it's high time that people on a micro level look at their cash flow to actually repay the loans, have it refinanced there. And secondly, on a macro level, I think although we are not economists or we are just financial planners and advisors, that the government looks at this on a very cyclical basis, because this can balloon up into something very drastic over a period of time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the whole thing can be very macro, but just to put it in extremely simple terms, you need to understand that, refinancing your loan, it would help definitely in bringing down your EMI. And I just want to add one more point, that you need to be careful of any processing charges as well that essentially may come about. All right, one quick point, and then I want to get into some very simple and generic point, and that's generating additional sources of income. Now, you know what, I'm going to put up a plate that's going to give you a very simple example that we have shown with respect to generating additional sources of income. And this is something that, I know a couple of people have tried. That screen is just going to come up for you on your screen. That's just going to come up for you on your screen. There we go. I know you're sitting at home, and I know you must be wondering that, listen, how on earth am I going to generate additional sources of income? Well, guess what? I know somebody who's been tutoring online on Vedantu for 4 hours daily. They're getting a nice package of 25,000 rupees per month. I know somebody else who, by the way, makes people play housey online and manages to gain a nice amount of money every day. So, Harsh, let me come to you. How important is it to try and essentially generate additional sources of income while someone's sitting at home?
If you can do something online, because while you're at home and you're not supposed to even meet anybody else, you will need to take the online mode. And if you have some skills which you can share with other people and it adds value into their lives, it could be simply making people do yoga, for that example. And if you know well, and if you can add value into anybody's life, why would you not want to do that? So I know some people who don't get into things like these, think that the amount is not much. Okay, what, I will not gain anything much. So what's the harm? I mean, if at this juncture not doing anything else, and if you generate some kind of income out of it, of course it's welcome, and it's also adding value. As I said, you just don't do something for the sake of keeping yourself busy. I mean, it's more to do with what value you're adding to somebody else's life. So if you can make, you can give some tutorials online, you can help them. Of course, you can earn a living, and why not? I mean, and if you don't really require that money. So there are some people who think that, what will I do with, say, X amount of money, 5,000, 10,000 a month? If you don't need it, then PM Cares is always there for you.
Okay, well, all right. So you can get as innovative as possible.
I would like to add something.
Sure, go ahead, Kalpesh.
On a lighter note, I think these people who are successful at generating this additional income are the ones who would be actually hoping for an increase in the lockdown period.
Well, the rest are not, and that's a minority. So I'm sorry, I vote against extension of lockdown. But of course, I mean, we have to look at whatever's best for society at this point of time. Okay, I'm going to share one very interesting screen that we have also tried and compiled, and that is the basics. Many a times, and especially while we are sitting at home, we forget to do something extremely basic that can actually help you save money. And I'm going to share that screen with everybody in just a bit. And there you have it. When you are at home, and given how the temperatures are soaring in India, I'm sure many of you guys have your air conditioners on, you're up plummeting it down to just 16 degrees Celsius. Well, guess what? That just increases your electricity bill like crazy. In fact, we were just having a chat with the family the other day about how the January-February electricity bill is going to be extremely low, and it is going to shoot up considerably in March and April. So that's one tip that will help you sort of, cut down your electricity bill, as is the case with cutting down your Wi-Fi at night. You're sleeping, you don't really need the Wi-Fi. That could go a long way. And then, of course, when it comes to mobile data, what's the point of keeping that active? You can just use your home Wi-Fi, because anyway, you guys are at home. subscription services, gym, club, and of course, all of the television that you're watching in the form of Netflix, Hotstar, Prime, and I think I've lost count of the number of subscription services, but I bet that you guys are not using all 6, 7 of them. This is the time to actually figure out how much you're actually using. And finally, and something extremely basic, you guys are all at home, so don't forget to start your car because the cost of changing the battery could be extremely high. Harsh, have you started your car in the last 1 month?
Yes, I've actually, as a routine, I have fixed up a date once a week. In fact, I go down and I just on my car and just kind of strolling around it. So it feels a little stupid, but it's fine because you need to do this. And I'm just roaming around it. So I'm sure my security guard would be asking me, so why are you on the car and then roaming around? Yeah, I mean, why don't you sit in it and do something? But yes, it's a very important point actually.
Yeah.
Even your tire pressures, you'll have to check that because the car being on a standstill mode tends to lose pressure. So when you start driving with it, then you'll have a issue of the tire being cut from, you'll have some problems with the tire which you'll have to change again. So just take a small stroll with a car, small drive within your compound to just ensure that it is functioning. It's a very important point actually. So I'm glad you highlighted this because we tend to forget about it. And I also started doing this only when I got a WhatsApp forward. So yeah, it did not come to my mind otherwise.
Okay, great. So you know what? Now I'm going to get to answering all the questions and queries. We've got quite a few. And folks, if you guys too want to, ask your question to either Kalpesh or Harsh, there's a Q&A button that you can see on the bottom of your screens. So you can just click on that and we can get to answering those questions and queries. We've got quite a few. So I'm going to, quickly, without any further ado, kickstart. We have Neha Harpalani who has written in her question. She asks, what investment options are good for a beginner right now? Well, quite an interesting time is what she's chosen. But yeah, Harsh, let me start off with you. What would you recommend, Neha?
For a beginner, of course, I mean, this is one of the good times to start investing. With a simple reason, you're really seeing the worst. You're seeing situations wherein cash flows are becoming a problem. So why don't you start with creating that contingency fund for yourself? So imagine a situation if you were put into this this kind of a situation probably 5 years from now. So we're looking at it in 2020. Imagine if something like this happens to you in 2020 again. Then how are you likely to face this situation? So you can see all the problems live in front of you. Now design your plan accordingly. So first is of course contingency fund. So make sure that you have some money available where you can sail through a situation without income for say probably 3 to 4 months to begin with. 6 months ideally, 12 months even better. But 3 to 4 months, do you have enough money to pull out at any point in time? If yes, then you move to another set of investments, which is probably I need to grow my money as well. I need to, essentially just make a wish list to begin with. So we call it a goal, but it's a wish list. It's to say that what do I want in life, when do I want it, and how much time do I have for it? And then select an appropriate product that basically suits those requirements. So yes, put yourself in a situation that you're in today. Imagine if this happens to you in 2025, what all will you require? And then start allocating your money. So ideally, I mean, go easy, go with your debt fund. A short-term debt fund kind of a thing is good enough. And then slowly, gradually migrate to hybrid. Hybrid funds would be having an equity debt both together, and then move to equity funds after that.
Okay. That's a fair point, and I hope everybody who's interested in using this time to start investing, I think Harsha has given a nice brief startup point on how you can go to investing. We've got quite a few questions actually on EMIs and loans. Let me take one such question. Sharjil Sheikh has just now asked us, they've already cut salary up to 50%. Now his question is, shall we take the moratorium on the housing loan? The housing loan is 3 years old. Does it make sense to shift the loan from an LIC housing finance to a Central Bank of India? The difference in the rate is 0.8%. And there's a 1% shifting charge up to 55,000 rupees. Kalpesh, would you like to take that?
See, first of all, if you have a 50,000, a 50% cut in your salary, like what he's mentioned, I think that's a huge bearing, because let's understand the basic, when a person is, deciding on taking an EMI or a amount for his loan, we generally say that should not be 30% or more than his monthly income. Now, if the income has come down by 50%, it's really a deep, deep problem that even if he was to service this loan and this amount of shifting, the 1% shifting charges or the 0.8 difference between an LIC housing or the central bank, I think would not really hold good, because his income has dropped down by that, and his proportion of EMIs would then constitute a large portion of his monthly expense. So the more critical part for Sharjil is to look at his other expenses on how he's going to do. So it's obvious that if he's going to shift from LIC housing to central bank and save on something, he should do that, because every drop would add up in saving for him. And if it's that simple, he can do it, because after paying that 1% processing charge over a period of time, because the loan, as you said, is just 3 years old and it's a long way to go. So, and we are probably going to look at still lesser rates going forward. So it's going to be beneficial. But the larger concern which I see for him is that till the moment his monthly cash flow is not, fixed up right, he will, sorry to say, but face a real problem in managing the other essentials or the needs of his money expense. So revisit the cash flow, Sharjil, and see what all, like in the beginning of the program, we said, revisit your cash flow and see what all you can cut down. And keeping this EMI as an essential payment, I think see where you can circle it around and get going with it.
Even though it's just 0.8, it may look very less, but everybody who's paying an EMI will know it does make quite a difference.
Yeah, over a period of time, it will add, and his loan is just 3 years. So probably he has another 7 to 12 years more to go for a repayment. So it's a large amount.
Okay. Another very interesting question. This one is coming in from Anil Kumar. He says, the fundamental goal for me is to secure my principal. And I suppose, the way in markets, etc., falling, everybody wants to ensure that the capital, at least that they've invested, is not gone. He wants to know where to invest in these times. He is asking for tax-free bonds, then liquid bonds or bond funds for senior citizens. So does he believe that you should invest in the debt market, or at this point of time, do you think a fixed deposit is the best way to go? Harsh?
Yes, debt funds and the debt segment per se has been very disappointing in the last 1-2 years. I mean, no investor who invested into debt funds ever expected a loss kind of a situation. So we're looking at low returns. We're looking at probably fixed deposit or even lower or higher, plus minus 200 basis points is something that a debt investor may have looked at. But to have these kind of defaults and at the segregated portfolios, side pocketing, I mean, there's a lot of pain in this area, and I think fund managers have to do something about this very clearly. I mean, it cannot just side pocket it and say, okay, there is a provision, we'll try and recover, we'll give it back to you. I think there is a lot of onus and responsibility these fund managers have to take on themselves when they're investing in the debt space. If you want to take risk, equity is the space. So we will not spare them on this count for sure. Now, being a senior citizen, his concerns are very, very fair. I mean, as a senior citizen, you don't have, or a retired individual for that matter, you would not have another source of income, and you're completely dependent on the capital that you have. So yes, you will want to secure it and not, take any risk with that money. Now, I endorse that view completely. I mean, I am completely of that view that he should be looking at only securing his money at this juncture. And for that, of course, my first preference, if you're in a 30% tax bracket, to look at tax-free bonds. So these are the listed bonds which are issued by public sector enterprises. They're available at a yield of about 5 to 5.25%, even if you invest today. And the residual tenure of some issues which have been, come out earlier, you would still have a good 10 years or 12 years also available. So even if you park your money today, you will get this kind of return for the next 10 to 12 years. So tax-free bonds, if you're in a 30% tax bracket. If you're not in a 30% tax bracket, then I guess you will have to look at, if you're a 10% taxpayer with a 10% tax bracket, then you can split your money across fixed deposits. You could have some bit of mutual funds. So you cannot ignore that space completely, but allocate less if you're not comfortable. Even if you're allocating, there are fund houses who have demonstrated that they have been very, very prudent in handling investors' money, and they've not seen any default. At the same time, they've given you about 8 to 9% returns as well. So there are fund houses. So if you have access to a good advisor who can select those schemes for you, you will need to allocate some bit of money over there. Keep fixed deposits, keep a mix of mutual funds, but make sure in a mutual fund space, you do not go beyond short-term plans. So just stick to the short-term funds. Don't go for the long duration. Don't go for credit funds. Don't go for those kind of things. So a good split will give you a decent return, which will at least help you meet inflation targets. So that is what the priority should be at this juncture.
I would like to add here for the senior citizen, if you don't mind.
Sure, go ahead, Kalpesh.
Surely in the basket of senior citizen, one cannot but ignore, you should never ignore the senior citizen savings scheme, the small savings schemes.
Yeah.
And that is a beautiful, like if you want security, I think there's nothing much more you can look at that. Although there has been a very drastic cut in the senior citizens rates in the last quarter, but still, I think given that it's a sovereign type of a product and with a 5-year lock-in and a quarterly interest payout with a limit of 15 lakh per individual. So if there's a couple, they have a room for 30 lakh of rupees to be invested out here. So at almost, the rate which was, it's, I think if I'm not mistaken, 7.9 or something, which is right now.
7.4 after being
7.4 after the reduction. Yeah. So that is not a bad deal at all. Obviously, the taxation part is going to be there. And if he's missed the bus, there was a similarly good product, the Pradhan Mantri, the pension product, which was there, which got over on 31st of March. I don't know whether that's been renewed. So that also gave a 10-year continuous 8% type of a return. So for senior citizens, for security, I think as a basket, that would have been a brilliant proposition.
Okay, all right. In fact, we have Naresh Khaitan as well asking about the Franklin Credit Risk Fund and the HDFC Short-Term Fund. I suppose, Harsh, you have helped him get that question answered too. Okay, very quickly, I want to try and take on board as many questions as I can. We have Girish Kumar Samyani who's asking, my question is very simple. Shall we hold our portfolio in equity and mutual funds or in cash it for future uncertainties? Basically, will cash be king? Kalpesh, are we looking at such a state where, perhaps one should just keep cash in their hands because the way markets are falling, the way, things are falling, it's best that right now you just sit on cash and, as they say, chadar ke niche rakh do or keep it up your ceiling or anything like that. But yeah, would you advise that?
So let's take it in two parts. First, cash is king. I think I endorse it, the latter part of it. Okay. But the question is not complete because he had another part of it. Shall we redeem it, the equity part, and then get into our cash component portfolio? There, I have a little bit of a concern there that why would anybody want to convert his notional losses, because everybody suffered a deep gash, a deep cut in his equity portfolio, and come out of the equity component and convert that notional loss into an actual book loss. So it's a bad vicious cycle we are going through. But in fact, even if you see percentage wise, the market has corrected by almost 35 to 40% as we talk today, the worst. But in the previous market crashes, there have also been market crashes where it has gone up to 60%. Although the crisis was of a different type, that was a pure financial crisis which we are talking about. But in terms of if just timing the market goes, I'm not at all, in the camp of timing the market. It's always goal-oriented investments for which you've invested. So if you've invested with a particular purpose, if you've had your asset allocation in place, if you've got your debt component in place, if you've got your contingency fund or a board component in place, then all that should stand you in good stead. So there's no need to convert those equity losses and bring it to cash. But on a standalone basis, I agree with the individual and with you, Mubina, that cash is king and keep it under the chadar.
Okay, all right, but don't book your losses and do that. I
Absolutely, yeah. If there's an option to do so.
Yes. Okay. All right, another very interesting question. Gaurang Vyas has asked: is this a good time to buy a new house, taking housing finance? We're a new couple planning to start life. Okay, so Harsh, we know property prices not exactly doing well. We know housing finance companies interest rates are very, very low. So would you advise that if somebody has cash with them, they could put it in the housing market right now, Harsh?
So well, if you always wanted to buy a house, then of course this is the best time for it. And if you look at the new projects, there's a huge unsold inventory with them. And now with this COVID pandemic, lockdown, etc., and the economic slowdown that we are very clearly looking at. I mean, it's no doubt. Nobody even believes that we will look at about 6% GDP growth. I mean, those are even out of question in discussion right now. So you will see a lot of weakness in the economy otherwise.
Yeah.
And at this juncture, if you are going to go out in the market to say, I have money to put down on the table, I am credit worthy of some financial institution giving me money, and I want to buy a house for self-consumption. Well, you're the knight in shining armor for all the real estate developers who are listening to you at this point in time. And they will be willing to give you a property probably 30 to about, I think 30 to 40% lower. You can even quote at this juncture to say that give it to me or I'm moving on. I mean, I'm reasonably sure you would be getting a property at a good price. But my only word of caution, do not buy into real estate only thinking that it's coming cheap. So buy only if you always wanted to buy. This is the best time to buy it. I think there are many people listening to you, or real estate developers will be wanting your contact details as of now.
Okay, all right. Well, very quickly, let's take on board. I'm going to roll these two questions that we've received in one because I'm going to try and answer as many as I can. NT Rai and Kaushal Sakhardande, they've asked similar questions. Firstly, NT Rai, she asks, should a first-time investor enter now and buy an SIP? Since the markets are down, of course, entry point will be attractive, and she wants to know which ones should she start off with. And then we have Kaushal Sakhardande, who asks, can investing in index funds be a good option in such an uncertain period? Again, a fair point, right? We have the Nifty, which is the benchmark that's down, it's just at 91 or 100, etc. So the value of those index funds as well will be low. So yeah, Kaushal, Kalpesh, pardon me, if you'd like to take that question, the first-time investor, how should they go about starting their SIPs, and even about index funds?
Yeah, I was waiting to answer this. So that's the one which is coming up with a lot of vigor with everyone, and it's a very, very, I think, justified question. Yeah. Just a disclaimer first to both the questions that before you get into this markets, have your cash flows in place, have your contingency fund in place, and then if you are a first-time investor, I think this is a very good opportune time to look at the markets. I think in the previous talk we had, Harsh elaborately told us that, a first-time investor always would be looking at this type of a market, because probably for the next 10 years, once we tide over this, he's not going to see a worse time than this again. So this is, I think, as and when we tide over the negatives of this thing, I think there's always going to be a good, opportune and a positive scenario which a new investor who gets his feet wet into the markets at this moment could be looking at. But obviously with the two disclaimers. Now, how should he get in? And the simple answer to that is that the worst is not behind us. We are in fact very much in between the storm. Okay, and we don't know when it's going to abate. So the best thing is to do is that have a first time into a short-term debt fund, see how the mutual funds work, see how the daily NAV affects, see how the volatility, even in the debt funds, we've discussed that the debt funds also have become very, volatile nowadays. So even if a first-time investor wants to get educated that NAV changes on a daily basis, the debt fund is a good parameter to see that. Start an SIP and a very small amount of lump sum in the debt fund and monitor it. Once you understand, then the best thing would be to move into I would say a hybrid stroke index fund, because there you will get to know that at the levels of 27,000 to 30,000 where the market, or 31,000 where we are right now, how it is moving. And with all the, asterisk marks that it can go down back to 25,000 levels and all those things, you would actually get a good ride in that. And keep the SIP amount as the amount you can actually afford completely out of your cash flow, that you would not stop that now that you're getting into this market as a fresh investor. So decide the amount of SIP which you want after calculating all your expenses, that this is for the long term, and look at debt funds in that the short term category. Second, the hybrid stroke index funds, and monitor the investments. It's a good time even for non-savvy financial people to understand what is going on out here. So just by merely asking questions on television or on things is not going to, really help till you understand actually by reading the NAVs of mutual funds on a daily basis. So it's a good time. People should learn also to educate themselves on these aspects and then start the journey. I think for a beginner, there is no better time than this time to start his investment journey.
In
Well,
fact, Mubina, I just want to add one
yes.
point here with respect to starting NAVs and the experience that you have when you start as a beginner.
Yeah.
So when you start, in fact, somewhere, you should hope that the markets fall after you start. So while you're starting your SIPs, when you start your SIPs, suppose you're investing 5,000 rupees a month and you invested for 1 year. You put in 60,000 rupees and the markets crash. So we've got many viewers right now talking to us saying that I just started my SIP 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm in negative right now, and the moment I started, I'm in negative.
Yeah.
So one thing, if you've invested for 2 years 5,000 rupees a month, you've invested 1,20,000. The loss that you're incurring is on 1,20,000. Now imagine the other way around. The moment you invested, the market started going up, and you're feeling very nice about it. You're very happy, and then you start increasing your SIP amounts. And then 10 years later, you see a 40% crash. What is your stake? And then the 40% crash after 10 years of accumulation, you're going to run away from the market. So we believe that when you start, and somewhere you should also hope that जो भी बुरा होना है, वो 1-2 साल में हो जाए. So at least I can weather this ups and downs. And then if you continued after seeing a decline in your values of 40% after 2 years of SIP, and if you still continued, be assured this guy will invest for another 10-15 years because he's seen that starting itself. So don't worry.
Yeah, even Harsh, I would like to add here that God forbid if this negative zone continues for a longer protracted period of time, the units which will be purchased by the concerned SIP investor will be large and huge. And once the upside starts, I think he will be smiling his way for a remaining period of time. So it is patience personified, which you will require at this point of time for every type of investor.
Like they say, right? You should never waste a good crisis. I think this is a line that you guys must be telling all of your
Absolutely.
clients as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting everything for like a really cheap price, so might as well load up, especially for a long-term investor.
Yeah, in fact, SIPs are meant for this type of a crisis.
Yeah. Okay, so never waste a good crisis. If you've not yet started a SIP, what are you waiting for? Go ahead. Even if things will turn a bit bad, you're just going to get to pick up more units at a lower value. Things will eventually turn around. We've seen many more crises like this in the past, and still, a lot of SIPs have done very well, especially from the long term. I'm just going to get closing comments, and I want to add upon one more asset class that we actually haven't got a chance to touch upon, but we've got a lot of queries on that too, and that's gold. So just as I wrap it up, Kalpesh, I'm going to just merge these two questions. Your view on gold, because we've seen it go to 45,000 recently, and also Kalpesh, just a word of advice to a lot of the viewers right now as they perhaps are in the lockdown. Many of them may be struggling at this point of time to make certain payments. Just a word of advice on how you believe they should tide this crisis over.
Okay, so first on gold, a personal thought which I've always had is that I've never been advising on gold as an investment option to a large extent till February or March. And all that changed. And I'm making a confession here. Okay. So always we used to say, me, Harsh, or our fraternity people, that gold should just be, 10% or 15% of your entire portfolio. And I used to stick by that. Now I have changed it. And the reason why I'm telling is also comes with a little bit of a profound thought. The allocation of gold now, I'm increasing that not in my investment portfolio. That still remains where it is supposed to be. Okay. I'm increasing that in my contingency fund as and when possible for people to do on a broader perspective, because even if I invest in gold, it is still liquid. It will give me the price which I want immediately as per the prevailing price in no time. In 24 hours, I'll get my money. And I will not be happy if it goes from 40,000 to 47,000. That's a promise I make to myself, because I'm not putting money in gold as an investment option, but as a contingency. If it has to rise, good luck to me. But I'm increasing it as an option in a contingency fund, that this is also an investment option or an instrument which will give me liquidity whenever I want it, and that too in a paper form. Because in a lockdown, if I have all the gold stored in my cupboard, the police is not permitting me to go and sell it to the jeweler itself. So that is where the paper gold also is going to turn good for me, that I can sell it if I have bought a gold mutual fund or gold ETF and so on and so forth. But surely gold as an investment option, I still stick by the 10 to 15% thing. I go by the thought that paper gold should be bought. Sovereign gold bond schemes, which the government has kept on, introducing the tranches of it, is a brilliant way if you want to accumulate gold as a part of your portfolio with whatever capacity of money you have. Do that going forward. The reason is that we are into a very uncertain time.
Yeah.
So that is my piece on gold as we look at it. But surely the financial assets, equity and debt are going to be the main weapons which are helping you, combat your future. Now coming on the second aspect which you said, first and foremost, the piece of advice I would like to give everyone as a parting thing is take care of your health. As I said in the beginning, that jaan hai to jahan hai. There is nothing more important than our health of ourselves and our family. Because if tomorrow there is a magic vaccine found, or there is the lockdown being opened up, we have to go and capitalize. We have to fight our own battles and get back on our feet. And that time what we need is our health. So take care of our health. Second, as far as the payments go, understand one thing: if you are facing a cash crunch, and this is the last point I would like to make, if you are facing a cash crunch, so is everybody else.
Yeah.
So make a list of the people in your own mind, of the people who are really needy, who you can afford to pay upfront and make their life easy. And also do not forget your commitment to the nation. That is paying your taxes on time and also paying your utilities on time.
Okay, great. You know what, we're completely out of time. So I just want to thank all the participants who, spend the last 1 hour with us, and Kalpesh and Harsh, of course, to you as well. We've got so many questions and queries. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to answer all of them. We'll try and perhaps, plan a webinar similar to this. Thank you so much, Kalpesh and Harsh, for joining in on this webinar. Folks, you can always, of course, catch this conversation on ET Now's Facebook page, on our Twitter handles as well. But for now, it's a goodbye. And of course, stay tuned. We will be coming up with a lot more webinars.